the specific topic we're discussing today are polyps. So polyps are the abnormal formation of endoluminal tissue, and so that can be a pretty broad definition, but the main organs we'll be talking today is in the colon. Although polyps can also form in the stomach and throughout the entire GI tract, as well as certain areas in the nose and in the ears, because it's endoluminal tissue. But the issue with polyp formation, at least in colon development, is that it is a precursor to potential development for cancer. And factors that can contribute to that include certain lifestyle habits, such as smoking, diabetes, obesity, as well as a low fiber diet or high fat, high meat diet, as well as some factors of stress and genetics. And it's interesting because you can classify these polyps depending on their appearance and histology. So to the right, we have some colonoscopy images taken from a camera that is sent through your colon, and it just captures these polyps. And there's different types, as you can see, based on the morphology of how they look. And this is the general consensus. You have sessile polyps by appearance and pedunculated polyps, which, as visually, they're different because sessile polyps are flat, they don't have a stalk, and pedunculated polyps look like a mushroom, so they have a stalk and it's more mushroom shape. However, both by appearance is not enough to determine whether it's cancerous. So some might be benign or they're cancerous. What you need to do in a biopsy is you need to take a sample of that tissue and analyze it. And once you analyze it, it can fall under these categories. It can either be neoplastic or non-neoplastic. And for today, we'll be discussing the neoplastic category because those are the ones with potential malignancy for future development into cancer. This is the pathophysiology of how a polyp can develop into adenocarcinoma. So how can you treat polyps? In most cases, what you want to do is take preventative measures and just remove it. And you can do that through the polypectomy. The modalities that we currently have, at least endoscopically, is to use hot forceps, hot snares, cold forceps, or cold snares. Hot forceps in that sense, or hot snares, basically use electrocautery. And cold forceps and cold snares, they don't use electrocautery. They just cut the polyp, resect the polyp without breaking it into different chunks. But the factors you want to consider when you do an operation like this is you want to consider whether the polyp is huge or small. So they have different categorizations depending on the size of the polyp. If it's within the below 10 millimeters, especially from 4 millimeters to 10 millimeters, you call that small or diminutive polyps. If it's bigger than that, then it falls into a different category. And then it goes up until large. So depending on the size of the polyp, when you cut it, it might have tissue bleeding. It might also have tissue damage. So just to give an example, electrocautery burns the local tissue. It also creates thermal damage beneath the tissues. So you don't want that in your colon because it might cause the potential for hemorrhages or delayed hemorrhages down the line or future revisions. Other factors that might go into a consideration is the fragmentation of the polyp. If it's too big and you use forceps, the forceps might not capture the entire polyp as well as a snare does, and it might capture into chunks. You wouldn't want that floating around your stomach when you're trying to extract it, or your colon in this case. So here's an image of different polyp sizes, and when you zoom in, you can see the morphology of the polyps. In this case, the ones on top might be sessile. They look more flat shaped and more adhering to the endoluminal tissue, whereas when it gets bigger, it might become pedunculated. So other modality treatments, what are the treatment modalities in this case? The comparison between cold snare polypectomy and hot snare polypectomy is that hot snare polypectomy uses cautery or electrocautery. So the way you also deliver in the procedure, the snare to remove the polyp is different. Cold polypectomy, you lay the snare underneath the polyp at the mucosa level and you pull it towards you, or pull it away so you can cut the polyp. With hot snare polypectomy, you wouldn't want to drag the snare along the base of the mucosa. You want to remove it from the mucosa because otherwise you'll be burning that tissue. Here are some treatment modalities of how that looks like. In the comparison between in image 1, the hot snare, versus in image 2, the cold snare. As you can see, hot snare leaves a burn mark, as shown in image 1. And image 2, it just leaves a local bleeding area where you remove the polyp. But you can see also the difference in sizes. Small polyps might benefit from cold snare technology or cold snare treatment versus big polyps. You might want to use that electrocautery or that hot snare treatment, just basing off the potential bleeding that you might cause. So a surgeon would weigh these pros and cons and make the best decision. And there are different snares available in the market, but today we'll be talking about this particular one, the Boston Scientific Captivator cold snare. And these are some specs of it found online publicly on how this would work. And it's recommended for polyps in a diminutive to small category, 4 to 10 millimeters. More specs are found online of how that device works. And from here, we'll be switching gears over to SolidWorks. Here on your SolidWorks pane, you have your graphical window. And here on your right, on your left in this case, you have your family tree. So this family tree is useful because it shows you the development of this device from beginning to end. Since SolidWorks is parametric modeling, you need to create a history of everything you made as from the beginning of the session to the end of the session. In that case, you can go back and edit it should you want to. But to begin, we'll make a new part. what's left? We've incorporated so far the handle. We're missing the actual shaft, or the thread, or the wire. All right, so let's give this one more look. How does it look like now? Looks more like a snare, if you ask me. Do a quick save. And now comes my favorite part, which is the part where you add material and color properties. Would you look at that? So it's done. What you want to do now, if you want to, you can modify the angles that's best for you, for your render. But once you're done and you're satisfied with your image, you want to save your image. So you click down here, Save Image, and you're just prompted to save it on your local desktop or your downloads, and give it a nice name. So that's pretty much the end for this session. Things we learned today is how to make a biomedical device specifically. We learned about polyps, polypectomies, the potential dangers for untreated polypectomies or untreated polyps, and more specifically, how to make biomedical devices with specs, how to make adjustments as you go for features that you might run into issues with, how to adjust the timeline for the tree, extrudes, circular patterns, sweeps, spirals, and at the end, once all is done, how to make a nice render to make your presentations presentable and professional. All right, so that's pretty much it. If you liked it, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.